Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Country Education Partnership Free Professional Development Spring Series. My name is Brendan Ryan. In the spirit of reconciliation, the Country Education Partnership acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Victoria and Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respect to their elders, past and present, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples today. So welcome to today's session. Our focus is on wellbeing tools in schools, and it's the third session in a four-part spring series. So as usual, it's my pleasure to introduce the Chief Executive of Country Education Partnership, Mark Macphail, who will provide an update regarding CEP proceedings. Mark.
Thank you, Brendan, and welcome everyone. Yeah, really busy time for us at the moment. I just wanted to run through a couple of quick things. CEP been working closely with clusters across the state, but also working closely with the Department of Education in putting together some documentation around clusters, recognising the importance of clusters, the purpose, the significance, and we're really heading in the right direction there. And I think we'll see really significant change in the next 12 months. And the ideal situation for us, when you're a new principal and you apply for school and get the position that's part of a cluster, that you are fully aware that of your responsibilities within that cluster before and on your early days in the role. So we're excited. We've got a team down at the Taplock cluster tomorrow, and we've got Yasha, who's acting principal MacArthur, who's come from Melbourne, decided to experience the country, and he's really looking forward to working with other principals, which is great to hear. Other things, we're presenting next Friday at FedU to the fourth year PSTs about the benefits of teaching and living in country areas. So really excited about that. We have some PSCs who are finishing their teacher replacements this week. I just want to mention one of them. I won't name her, but she's down at Orbost. She's absolutely loved it. It's the second placement down there. Plus, she's had a bit of time on her hands, so she decided to, she said, I'm a bit anal. She created a spreadsheet to compare the cost of living in Metro compared to country. And people will be very happy to hear that country has come out way ahead. In 4 weeks, it's a really significant saving to live in the country. So if you throw in that the cheap housing that's available, she said it's a no-brainer. So we've got one convert there, but that was really interesting to hear. And she'll be actually speaking in one of our sessions next year. So busy times for CEP. Thank you, Brendan. Back to you.
Thanks, Mark. And can I mention that in addition to focus on wellbeing tools in schools, we will have an update from Nigel, Preston, regarding the energy breakthrough, which I know many people are interested in. Today's session will take exactly an hour. We'll finish by 5 p.m. The session, as usual, is being recorded, so there will be an opportunity to review the session whenever convenient online. And I make the point each week that past sessions are also available for you. If you have a question, please include it in the chat box. We'll keep an eye on the chat box and we'll endeavour to respond to any questions today. And if for some reason we can't get to the questions, we'll certainly follow up during the course of the next week. And finally, can I mention that there will be a survey, a poll before the end of the session, and we'd ask all participants to make sure they complete the survey before signing off today. So back to Mark to introduce our guests and facilitate today's discussion. Over to you, Mark.
Thank you, Brendan. So just to reiterate, the last two sessions are certainly worth checking out if you haven't seen them. We had a large spike in registrations for the literacy session, and that certainly continued with the social media marketing in school session from last week. So two of the better ones we've had, no pressure on today's group. today's group are also really keen to get some questions because we have allocated some time to it. So feel free to pop something in. So yeah, we are really excited to be heading to an absolutely beautiful part of Victoria today, virtually, to the town of Daylesford and the team from Daylesford Secondary. So we have Stephen Macphail, Bridget, Franc and Nick Cowan with us today. And Stephen is going to lead us off. So enough out of me, over to you, Stephen.
Beautiful. Thanks, Mark. Thank you for having us along to chat about well-being. It's a bit of a passion of mine and Bridget's and Nick's, this space. And before we start, when it comes to convincing people to live in the country, I just think you've got to look outside your window sometimes, and it's a beautiful, beautiful place around here. And we're very lucky to live in such a beautiful part of the world, and you can't beat it. So I would encourage anyone to head out into country and help out and teach and work out there, because there's a lot of kids out here that need it. And that's probably what drives us, is being out in country, you are really isolated, and having access to services is probably the most important thing. And that is a real challenge out in the country, is kids being able to access services. We live in Daylesford, or work in Daylesford, which is only 40 minutes from Ballarat, but we may as well be 40 hours from Ballarat, because there's no transportation links through Daylesford to anywhere really. So we're really isolated. So over the last 3-4 years, we've basically been on a bit of a journey. Bridget has been leading us up as our head of wellbeing, really bringing the services into the school and bringing all those wellbeing tools into the school, because the services just aren't here, which is a bit of a travesty in itself, but that's the way it is, and that's how we've worked. Just in terms of Daylesford College, very eclectic, very mixed, very diverse bunch of students. They present with all the same issues that you see in every school, no matter where you are, Melbourne, country, other countries like Scotland, where I'm from. So great bunch of kids as well, large geographical area, so people travel in from all over. And we, 5 or 6 years ago, we had a very traditional model of a couple of counsellors who kids would go and see when they're upset. And those 2 counsellors did great work. They had hearts of gold, and they worked their socks off. But it was a never-ending battle for them. And so we've embarked on this journey over the last few years to develop this, bring all those wellbeing tools into the school and have a really, really, really strong service delivery model, which Bridget and Nick are going to talk us through now. So I'll pass back to CEP to chuck that up.
Sorry, Maddie, we're just missing the audio on that one.
Our strategic focus over the last 18 months to 2 years has been to... Good afternoon, my name is Bridget and I'm Head of Wellbeing at Daylesford College. Today I'm going to be speaking about our multidisciplinary team, our school-based health services and our multi-tiered systems of care. Today's presentation will also cover our workflow process from the point of referral through to triage, assessment and care planning. Nick Cowan, our assistant principal, will refer to case studies. He will provide further insights into data that we have collected and elaborate on how we use that data to make informed decisions. We currently have just under 500 students at Daylesford College. Our reach includes families from Clunes to Murnion, Kyneton to Creswick and everywhere in between. Majority of our students are bus travellers and live outside of the Daylesford township. Daylesford College is the only secondary school in the Hepburn Shire. We understand that in servicing the wellbeing needs of our community, we must ensure that we address barriers that exist in our demographic. These barriers include wait times, socio-economic factors, lack of transport and access to youth-friendly or youth-specific healthcare options, And social visibility. This is a particular concern for young people in small rural communities where there may be a lack of anonymity. Our strategic focus over the last 18 months to 2 years has been to improve access and expand the services that we have available to young people and to consolidate our partnerships with key stakeholders. Our core wellbeing team includes Nick Cowan, our Assistant Principal of Community and Wellbeing, the Head of Wellbeing role that I'm currently in, our youth worker, mental health practitioner, and our secondary school nurse. As a forward-thinking school, we've also introduced the role of a Youth Engagement Officer. A layer of support that we've not listed here are our staff. Our teachers and education support team play a crucial role in supporting our students. A strength of our model is in our ability to collaborate with local services, bringing them into the school where they can deliver high quality care to our young people. We offer a youth wellness centre that is operated by a visiting GP from Springs Medical. This is available to students on a regular, fortnightly basis. It's important that we differentiate here that this is not the department's doctors in secondary schools model. Rather, this is a partnership at a local level, and it's ideal as it enables students to experience continuity of care during their time at school and outside of school hours with access to the same GP locally. Our services are also complemented by Central Highlands Rural Health, offering a regular AOD outreach program and access to the dietitian and social worker. We have an ongoing and growing partnership with Federation University. This includes provisional psychology and an emerging opportunity for us to offer clinical placements for students completing their Masters of Social Work. We also have a new relationship with the University of Canberra, offering a placement for their Master of Counselling program. Next year, Headspace will also return to our school. They will deliver their Enhancing Mental Health Support in Schools program. Our multi-tiered systems of care refer to our different levels of interventions and supports. At Tier 1 level, we're referring to our universal supports. These are our proactive, preventative and health promotion programs. At Tier 2 level, we're referring to our targeted interventions, and Tier 3 are our intensive supports. In terms of our focus on building wellbeing tools and boosting the mental health and engagement of our students, our well-established Tier 3 supports and embedded multidisciplinary structure has given us a real opportunity to now invest in our Tier 1 program. We know that our ability to reach a large audience in a school is unparalleled. We look to the vast evidence-based research that supports the idea that factors such as physical activity, mindfulness, and connecting with others fosters mental wellbeing. Programs that are grounded in evidence, such as the 5 Ways to Wellbeing, have a place in our school. At Daylesford College, we dedicate 1 week per term to wellbeing focused activities. We also run regular themed Feel Good Friday events. In addition to these school-wide approaches, we look to our skilled practitioners to create daily opportunities that support students to enhance their wellbeing and build up their toolkit of resources. We offer mindfulness sessions, creative programs, and endeavour to create opportunities that allow students to experience positive emotions, build relationships, and participate in meaningful programs that give them a sense of achievement. Daylesford College is ideally set in a community that has a strong focus on promoting wellness, and we have the opportunity to work with members of our community to explicitly teach the skills of wellbeing and enhance every young person's ability to flourish. Building the capacity of our staff and helping them to notice and inquire about the wellbeing of a student is a priority for us at Daylesford College. Our work with Live for Life has allowed us to support more than 35 staff to become trained in youth mental health first aid. We support teachers in encouraging them to have conversations with students when concerned about a change in their presentation. And we've developed an online referral system for wellbeing support. Our coordinated process to wellbeing support is illustrated in this diagram. Our focus is student-centred, and we ensure a consistent approach is followed in reviewing and triaging each referral. Triage is led by the assistant principal and head of wellbeing and involves the consideration of risk and protective factors to ascertain the level of need and acuity. It's important to note that our online referral system also guides teachers and school staff to consider if the concern is related to a child's safe matter or crisis. If so, the template directs the referrer to report to the assistant principal and child safe champion immediately and in person. Triage informs allocation. We can also establish if a young person should be seen as a priority. At the intake assessment, our clinicians follow a consistent approach that sets out the parameters of conditional confidentiality and build a profile and baseline data for the student. A consistent approach creates a sense of certainty for the students, and this is backed up by trauma-informed practices. Students know what to expect when they attend a wellbeing session with any member of our team. It's a predictable, safe environment that utilises an appointments-based system. We take into consideration the child's mental health continuum score using the resources developed by BU. Students also complete a sleep score and discuss their nutritional intake. Each wellbeing session includes a review of these measures, and Nick will speak to this in more detail soon. When determining the care plan for each student who engages with wellbeing, the online template allows us to refer to internal and external supports. This allows us to track progress and ensure that the most appropriate clinician is involved in providing care for the student. It also allows us to escalate the referral if there are indicators of increased risk. An important branch of our wellbeing services that fall under our Tier 2 and Tier 3 supports are our clinical and therapeutic interventions that we've put in place to align with our disability and inclusion team. Our health professionals provide specialist involvement for students with a disability and help to identify the strengths, needs and educational adjustments that enable students to thrive at Daylesford College. I will now
Back to you, Stephen, I think.
I think Kira's going to jump in just because it's frozen on my end.
Yep,
Very
if you
good.
could just stop your screen share, Maddie, I'll jump on and share that one.
Thank you.
While they're setting that up, I can quite happily talk. So I think one of the things before Nick comes up is
Bridget.
a real drive around everyone being involved. So we've got that clinical model and wellbeing that we've built up over the last 4 or 5 years, bringing a real triage approach and then ferrying students off to specialist clinicians and building up that team of clinicians and bringing them into the school. And the wellbeing space is overflowing pretty much. We need more space because of the volume of external people that we have in. Nick was about to, in the presentation, start to talk about how a lot of it is data driven. And what we see is, for example, in this shot here, it's up there, it's showing you how many students have been referred the one time. So we've had 60 students referred. Teachers have an online form that they refer them to, and the basis for them referring is very much that mental health first aid training that they've received. So they've received that training. Normally, a lot of schools have about 10% of their staff trained in mental health first aid. We've got well over 50, 60% of our staff trained, and the goal is 100%. So they're trained in what to look out for in changes in appearance, changes in attitude, changes in language, and the teachers are referring more and more and more. So we're able to, they're the front line for capturing students and wrapping them in cotton wool and then feeding them into the wellbeing space. The students are also trained in mental health, youth mental health first aid, and so they are also, they've got their own referral forms that they can do for their students as well. So we've gone from a few eyes on kids to we've got a lot of eyes on kids every single day. That's the adults at the school have the eyes on the students, but also the students have the eyes on their peers now, because we would have almost every student in the school now trained in mental health, youth mental health first aid. And so they're referring their friends as well, and they're aware of what to look out for themselves as well. So I'm not too sure how we're going with the presentation.
Yep, we're all ready to go.
All right, go for it. I'll be quiet again.
Perfect. Thanks, Stephen.
I'll hand over to Nick Cowan, our assistant principal.
Thanks, Bridget. What I'd like to do now, I'm going to go through some of the data and what sort of drives our work. And I'm going to start with our staff. And Bridget mentioned in a previous slide that they're sort of it's almost like an asterisk at the bottom. Our staff play the most significant role in capturing our students and our students' wellbeing needs and referring them to us. We've got about 70, just short of 70 staff at Daylesford. That's all our staff. This year, the areas of concern that have been identified by staff, primarily staff are identifying mental health and social and emotional health needs as the most significant with our students. When staff refer a student to wellbeing, the referral form details the areas that staff may consider where a student does require wellbeing needs, and that's why we capture that data. And the reason why is it gives us at triage and allocation an idea of what the concern may be, but it also builds with our staff that the knowledge to look for and identify things in their students beyond just sort of capturing perhaps misbehaviour or other areas of disengagement. There may be motivations or stories behind why students are struggling. As Bridget pointed out, the area of child safety, that is reported directly to me and also to Bridget, but that's still something that we encourage our staff to put referrals in and to capture what they are identifying as or observing as needs of areas of needs and areas of concern. The framework that Bridget mentioned that our wellbeing practitioners use at the beginning of every wellbeing session, I'm really, when I went through this data the other day and I shared it with staff, it was a wonderful opportunity to show them the power of their work, but also the impact that our practitioners are having on the students. It's really significant for us that students identify a teacher, not just a staff member, but a teacher that they trust. At the first appointment with a wellbeing practitioner, only 36% of students identify by name a teacher that they trust. After a minimum of 3 appointments, but for most it's 6 or more, 80% of the students have a teacher that they trust. They can identify by name a teacher that they trust. What that reflects is the crucial role that teachers play in the wellbeing support of our students. We ask teachers where they can and if they feel comfortable to have a conversation with the student prior to a referral or at the time of a referral, and that says to the student, I notice you, I know you, and that I'm ensuring that you're under care. So that's the significant data for us. We also have the mental health continuum, as well as sleep and nutrition. And I just wanted to show that mental health continuum data, again, first appointment and last appointment. That significant change in the student going through the wellbeing process and going from just under 4 at the first appointment to at their last appointment, and again, a minimum of 3 appointments, but for most it's 6 or more, that they identify themselves as 7 or more on that continuum. And that speaks to the exceptional work the practitioners do, the trust that the students place in their practitioners and in the process. And it enables us to assess the impact that we are having and the improvements that we may need to make, and that we're able to keep and continue to keep the students safe. I want to share now a couple of case studies, one of a junior student at Daylesford College and one of a senior student. The junior student was referred to Wellbeing by their English teacher. The English teacher is mental health first aid trained and just observed some disengagement and concerning behaviour in the classroom. And it was as simple as the student was arriving late, not bringing equipment, and their English book was tattered and torn and ripped. And that was the presentation. A fairly general referral put into Wellbeing. The teacher contacted home and spoke to parents, but also made the student aware that a referral had been put in. Triaged by Bridget and myself and allocated to the youth worker, and the youth worker identified in the initial assessment, the intake assessment, that the presentation, the issues were perhaps a bit more acute than what was in the referral and what the student and the parent had shared with the English teacher. And so they were referred to the provisional psychologist, who is on site here at Daylesford College a couple of days a week, met with the provisional psychologist after consent was given by the parent the evening before, and a safety plan, an initial safety plan was developed, and then external mental health services were accessed and provided support for the student. They developed their process, went through their process, and did their intake and assessment, and then the student was under the care of the external services while still being supported by the provisional psychologist here at Daylesford College. That process started on a Monday with the referral by the English teacher and was seen by the external mental health services on the Thursday afternoon. That was 3 days from the observation of the teacher and the concern by the teacher through to being seen by the external services. And that speaks to me to how our students are known by our teachers, and that really important role that the teachers have in identifying the needs of their students and taking something that I think previously would have been seen as misbehaviour, but seeing the bigger picture and what actually might be behind that behaviour. Our second student is a senior student who was referred to our wellbeing team by a peer, and a peer who is also has gone through the student mental health first aid training. They were referred with quite concerning presentations by that student, and home was contacted very quickly. The student was made aware of the referral and reluctantly engaged with wellbeing initially. An initial safety plan was developed at the triage stage, and then at allocation was picked up by Bridget as the head of wellbeing because of the more concerning presentation. The intake assessment, we then engaged the support of the GP here at school, as well as external mental health services. We're on the eve of school holidays, and so the student the risk was that the student would not be at school for and observed for a couple of weeks. And so by engaging with the GP, the student was able to be seen more regularly during that school holiday period. After the school holidays, the student returned to school. A safety plan had been developed by Bridget and I, and continually supported and monitored both by practitioners here at the school, but also by the GP and the external services. And I'm going to jump to the data from those both appointments, and what really for me is significant about the senior student, and the process took a lot longer than we had with our junior student. But from that first appointment where they identified themselves on the continuum as a 1, and I know that they would have said a 0 if they could, but they were a 1. By the last appointment, they were a 7, and they scored themselves at a 7 because they said they would have gone higher, but with the pressures of Year 12, they still felt that things weren't as perfect as they could have been, but such a significant shift in how they were presenting from that first appointment to that last appointment. And that would not have happened, I feel, without the peer noticing and referring, because we've done the mental health first aid training. Likewise with the junior student, at their most recent appointment, whilst they're still scoring lower, we've seen that improvement. And we saw that student being seen by our wellbeing team because of the observation of the teacher and the referral process from that teacher. We see with that the junior student at the first appointment having no teacher that they identify as being someone that they trust, to having 2 teachers, and our senior student having 1 teacher by the last appointment, 4 teachers, and that's the 4 teachers that teach that student at VCE. That's a significant change, and it's really important for us that they leave their appointment knowing it's not just the wellbeing practitioner, but there is a group of people at the school that they know that they can trust. And culturally, they know that across the staff that there are all these staff that they can trust. Likewise with the sleep, it was actually the senior student that presented to us at their initial appointments the lack of sleep, and as a result of that, that's why we added that to the continuum, sorry, to the intake assessment. They're the 2 case studies, and that's and I can share with you the data, particularly that intake assessment, that framework we use, and hopefully you can see why we use that. I note that we've gone over time, so I'm going to stop the recording of this presentation now and then throw back to the live version of myself.
All right, we're pretty much open for people throwing questions at us and asking about our setup and how we do things, and Bridget and Nick are here as well. They can answer away. Anyone got any questions? Hey, Brendan.
Yeah, I'll start. I noted on your website, Stephen, that you have mentor support sessions each week, and it says that you devote at least a full period each week to those sessions. Can you explain what happens with those sessions, how that's organised, what the structure is, or are all the staff involved?
Sure. So, well, I should be honest and upfront here. Our mentor program is currently on pause and isn't happening because the staffing challenges that everyone is facing at the moment has meant we've had to cut back in that space. But that's only for this term while we get through some challenging staffing problems. But normally it is year level based. So it's about 20 students in a class. We've got 4 classes at each year level. They have a mentor teacher who follows them all the way through from year 7 right the way through to year 12. And it's that idea of they basically see the kids every morning and they can eyeball the students every morning. this came out of the mental health first aid training, that it was really important to have a consistent, Bridget talked about consistency in practice. We've got consistency of the same teacher seeing the kids every single day, first thing in the morning, and they're the first set of eyeballs to see if they're noticing changes in that kid. And so they meet every morning for that. And then there was also a longer session for an hour that you mentioned, Brendan, that would delve into a lot of the social and emotional teachings and getting students on board with how do you resolve conflict, that respectful relationships type work that goes on. And you see a lot of it in the health curriculum. So there was the hour-long session, and they would do a lot of, for example, in year 7, a lot of it is team building, getting to know you, learning resolution skills, learning organisational skills, everything you need to succeed at school, but also the skills you need to succeed when you interact with your peers and how you deal with conflict are all packaged up in that longer session. But the short session every day is the same set of eyes looking at those kids every single day from when they start in year 7 up to when they finish in year 12.
Thank you.
Any other
Probably
questions?
time for one more question.
Well, Mark, I'm happy with a follow-up question. If anyone else wants to. Stephen, year 6 students coming into the school, or students coming in at other levels, transitioning into the school, what sort of transition program have you in place to develop the sort of wellbeing culture that you've clearly established at the school?
Yeah, so our transition program, I think, is fairly extensive. Every student in grade 5 and 6 of all of our feeder schools come for a transition day once every term. So by the time they finish grade 6, they'll have been up to the school 8 times over the 2 years. The wellbeing team are front and centre, no matter what the transition day is. It can be a phys ed transition day, a numeracy transition day, a literacy transition day focus. The wellbeing team are in there every single time. So the kids are learning the spaces, getting familiar, getting to understand, getting to know them. We go out and visit them at their primary schools as well. And for students that we know that are going to have a tougher transition than normal, we'll actually link them in with our wellbeing services. So like we'll link in grade 6s with our psychologists here at school, or we'll link in grade 6 students that are coming to us with our mental health practitioner, and they'll actually go out to the primary school when they're still in grade 6 and build that relationship with them. They've got that trusting person before they even arrive in year 7. They've already got that trusted person, and we do a lot of work around that. I don't know if Bridget or Nick want to jump in, because Bridget's the one that organises all the transition and does all that amazing stuff.
I could probably speak to the students that come during the school year. And we have a number of students in 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So it's a fairly extensive process. The enrolment process, we gather a lot of information. Our integration and support team do testing. There's a compulsory wellbeing appointment put into a classroom, and we have a big profile, a student profile that teachers get prior to the student setting foot in the classroom. And that really assists, particularly we're seeing a lot more students presenting, whether it's moving or shifting schools because of issues that they may identify at their previous school. And so it's really important for us to make sure that transition is as smooth as possible, and we know that student before they sit down with us in the classroom.
Yeah, I think Nigel's got his hand up. Or Bridget, do you want to add anything else off the back of Nick? Or go to Nigel? Go to Nigel. Go for it, Nigel.
Go to Nigel, yeah.
I figure Brendan got 2 questions, so I'd have one. It looks like you did a great job at bringing on your staff on board, and so I'd like to hear a little bit about how did you go about selling it to your staff cohort, and did you have any resistance in them buying in?
COVID helped. Right, that you know, there was lots of sad things that came out and off the back of COVID. but there's also silver linings, and some of the silver linings have been a better focus in the wellbeing space. I know I always got frustrated when the department would always say, well, as long as the teaching and learning's right, then everything else is fine. And I never agreed with that approach. And if you even looked at FISO documentation, teaching and learning was pretty much 75% of the circle, and well-being was this little sliver. Now you look at FISO, it's 50-50. So really COVID was a big driver. We started this work before COVID, and it definitely has helped with the teachers and getting them on board with that. There's also, I think, a different mindset with younger teachers coming out. I find myself that a lot of the older teachers are quite content focused. Their job's to deliver content, and the younger teachers coming out are definitely have a different view of that. And so that's helped. So there's a lot of factors that were actually outside of our control that have helped us. And I think as well, it's been fairly relentless at the school with, Bridget was brought in as head of wellbeing full time. Prior to that, it was a leading teacher 5 periods a week. So you make a big statement when you say we're actually going to bring in someone full time, not just 5 hours a week. I mean, if we're saying 5 hours a week to our staff is enough to deal with wellbeing from a leadership perspective, we're really not saying that it's worth much. So bringing Bridget on board, we made big statements like that. And Bridget works tirelessly with teachers and staff. We've also got a very clear, you quite often will see schools with silos. You've got your teaching and learning team, and then you've got your wellbeing team, and they're 2 silos. We have the 2 of them very much intertwined, so the staff see that at a leadership level they're intertwined. And when we speak to the staff about challenges in the classroom, wellbeing, how students are presenting, get brought into that conversation. So it's not just about your content. So like a lot of it, COVID was a major help in this space as well, along with all those things.
Thanks, Nigel. Thank you, Stephen, Nick and Bridget. Fantastic. I'm sure we could go on with further questions once we've got going, but we do need to move on. So once again, I'm sure there'll be a vast amount of people watching the recording, and yeah, we can't wait. The questions will keep coming, I'm sure. Fantastic work, and yes, you and I and many of us were very relieved to see that the system finally understood and put wellbeing at the centre. Maybe 30 years too late, but you've got to start somewhere. So, so without further ado, I am going to hand over to Jack van Velsen, who is from Wellbeing in Schools Australia. And Jack, I just want to make sure you are going to mention who you are and what you do, because you do fantastic things, but not everyone's aware of your work. But over to you, Jack.
Great, thank you. I just put a little presentation. I'll see if it'll come up. Hang on a second. So a little bit about who we are. So we're a small national not-for-profit addressing wellbeing in schools. Those of you who've been around since the dark ages like me would be aware of the old Mind Matters, Kids Matter initiatives before BU. We were rolling those out across Australia going back to the early 2000s. And we saw this gap, and this blaring gap stared in our face for quite some time, and a group of us got together and decided we'd do something about it. And that was that the majority of people who address wellbeing are teachers with no training or background in the area. So that was the birth of Wiser. We wanted to really look at ensuring, as you can see by our vision and purpose, that all kids get the opportunity to thrive in education. And we were going to help schools to do that by being a lot smarter and more strategic about addressing wellbeing and making sure that all of our students are thriving. So that's sort of where we started about 10 years ago. So what we've built is a range of trainings to help build the capacity of our wellbeing people. What we know about wellbeing people in schools is that the majority are in the role for 2 years or less, and they don't have any training in this space. So hang on, I'll just see if I can get this to move down. So we build our own business case around, really making sure that we could create this national approach, and we've been doing that successfully for the last 10 years. So I just came out of today of running a training with wellbeing coordinators. We had someone up in Townsville, 4 people down here in Victoria, and another one over in WA, all online together and sharing what they're doing and basically providing them with really basic training in undertaking the wellbeing role. We're pretty happy. We've got a 98% satisfaction rating that the training that we give them addresses their needs. And, what motivates us is that we know the earlier that we can get involved and support and resource people, it literally transforms life trajectories, as some of this research shows. So we've wanted to bring together, and what we do as an organisation is not only look at what is Australian best practice, but what internationally is best practice. So it's great seeing the mental health first aid that you were talking about. It's something that we highly recommend to everybody, but we also show them international best practice like health promoting schools and our mental health frameworks in schools, so that people can see what internationally is best practice, but also what we're using across Australia. So what's our purpose? We want to build the capacity and capability of our wellbeing leaders so that they can drive and embed wellbeing best practice. Like the discussion today, we acknowledge that wellbeing is core business and underpins quality teaching and learning, and we've got bucket loads of research that we utilise with the people that we're training so that they can share it with their staff. Because unless we can bring them on the journey with us, we're pushing the proverbial uphill. So WISER training really is a combination of showing what is Australian research and practice and what works, and giving them the evidence and the tools and the resources to be able to drive the change across their school community. So what we've built is the 3 levels of training for our leaders of wellbeing. So today I was running that essential basics, the most basic level. We've got another level on top of that, which we call level 2, and that really goes into a huge amount of depth. So we've got not only the research and the evidence, but we provide a whole lot of tools and give them to schools that they can use and share. We're not precious about these things. We're continually giving out resources that schools use them for all sorts of things. So, for example, I'll just show you some of the things. For example, Professor Ken Rigby, he's leading work around addressing bullying. We've got bullying intervention toolkits, resources on circle time, how we build relationships so that we can rapidly build trusting, respectful relationships, those sorts of things, just to give you a taster. WISER has also got some bullying intervention training, as you can see there. We're acknowledging that when we ask people in schools everywhere, can anyone tell us the most effective bullying interventions, we're knocked over by the deafening silence. So we work very closely with Professor Donna Cross and Ken Rigby, who have been the two Australian leading international experts in addressing bullying in schools for many years, and give the schools on the ground the most effective interventions that work and give them the tools so it's out there happening. And then the final training that we've built is that strategies for working with our marginalised students. On top of these, we've also got training that addresses, as I mentioned, the circle time. We've also been building staff wellbeing. So, you know, schools will contact us about all sorts of things. You know, we've got a parent night coming up. Can you help us? What could you do in blah, 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 blah. So we've, developed and run many things, but this is basically our core work together with the staff wellbeing and the circle time. So that's sort of who we are. We're a small national not-for-profit based in Castlemaine, just up the road from Daylesford. We have worked, I think, in the past with you guys at some stage, but I'd say it was probably a different iteration of people. More than happy to connect with CEP, having worked for a long time with Morris Billy. Yeah.
Thanks, Jack, and certainly encourage people to reach out and feel free to come through us as well. But fantastic that we now know what Wellbeing in Schools Australia offers. So sounds amazing, and we're all on the same path. So.
Good.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks for giving up your time today. Awesome. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good.
As many of you know, Country Education Partnership. Oh, this is probably meant to be you, Brendan, but I'll just keep going. Country Education Partnership run the Energy Breakthrough Program, which culminates in major event in Maryborough. So we combine with the Shire, Central Goldfields Shire, to run that event, and our educational leader and guru of EB is Nigel Preston, and he's here today to give us an update. Over to you, Nigel.
Cool. Thank you, Mark. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Good. It feels like a bit of a Central Victorian special this afternoon. So the Maryborough Council, Central Goldfields Shire Council, CEP and the council there have been partnering since 1991 to hold this program called the Energy Breakthrough, and we just wanted to include a small segment here this afternoon for people to understand a little bit more about the program and where we're up to. And we won't try to pretend that it's entirely a wellbeing program, but what we are hearing from schools is that it's a really brilliant program for engaging those students who aren't academically strong. I actually had a call yesterday from a leading private school, and they were talking about the value of Energy Breakthrough for their students who are disengaged and are really battling with absenteeism. So it can be a really great program for those students, particularly at that tricky year 8, year 9, year 10 level as well. So really great. For those who aren't aware, so we set out a set of specifications at the start of the year for schools to work together with their school communities to build some sort of contraption or creation that represents an energy breakthrough, and then they bring that to Maryborough. Might be in the form of a push cart, might be in the form of robotics, which we've partnered with this year. It might be a pedal-powered vehicle, or it might be an electric vehicle as well. So schools are working on these throughout the year, and it's part of my job with a small team of people to work with different schools to make this happen. As Mark said, we've been working on this since 1991, and it has gone through a number of different iterations, including now post-COVID. We're really seeing that we've had a lot of STEM teachers exit schools. That wouldn't be news to you. So we're seeing that this program is becoming really important to help schools try to reintroduce STEM as part of the program. A couple of really key important aspects are that we have a focus on girls' participation. So most of our teams require half of the participants to be girls. And that's really great for team building and that connectedness. And I know in one of the presentations, they spoke about connectedness being a really important attribute for wellbeing. We also see that school teams, they work together as a team, they work with the teachers, and that can really build that trust in the teachers throughout the year. And we often see the students are calling their teachers by the first name and really working together for this common goal throughout the year. It can be a really great activity and a great program to engage in. If you don't have any idea about where to start or anything like that, please get in touch with us. We will help point you in the right direction if you're interested, even if you have no STEM capacity at your school, but you may think we've got a cohort of students here that might want to get hands-on, that are disengaging from school, that aren't connecting with things. This could be the program for us. We're really open to helping talk to you about it. And see how it works for different schools. I think one of the challenges we have is that there's not a set way to do this program. In typical CEP style, we very much work with schools on a one-to-one basis or a one-to-many basis to help schools work out how it's going to work for you. So please reach out. The event itself is in November. If that is an entry point, even if you've got some staff who are interested in coming and want to see the event, Mark and some of our staff will be able to take you or the staff around the site for a tour, introduce you with some other schools, pair you up with some other schools and help you understand what is this STEM program and what's it all about. So that's our short pitch this afternoon, and I'll pass back. I'm not sure if I'm passing back to Mark or Brendan, but I'll do that now. Thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Fantastic. And yes, certainly happy to run VIP tours and take people into areas that the general public aren't allowed to go into. And you never know, you could end up with a role like waving a flag or hopping on a microphone. So the VIP tours are very much a fluid tour as we go. So I'll pass back to Brendan now. Just in relation to wellbeing and growth, I will just say the very impressive beard growth we've had from Damien Lappin for Lock Sports since the 2 weeks I've seen you last. Looking great. Back to you, Brendan.
Thanks very much, Mark. Can I also thank the Daylesford team and Nigel for their presentations today. I might note with Nigel, I looked back through the records for Energy Breakthrough, and I think he's been involved since 1998 as a student and 2001 from a management point of view for the program. So over 20 years service. So that's a terrific record. Congratulations for the work you've put in there, Nigel. That concludes today's session. Now, some reminders. The survey is now available in the chat box. So please complete the survey before signing off. This is the third in a 4-part series. Next week is the final program for the spring series. The focus is early childhood provision and flows, flexible learning options. So once again, a topic which is of significant interest to many people because of the movement associated with the formation of early childhood facilities at many of our schools. So I would encourage everybody to enrol for that final session next week, next Wednesday afternoon. So thank you to everybody who has participated today for your contribution. That concludes today's session, and we'll see you again next week. And final comment, remember the session has been recorded and there's some very important issues there that's been raised by Daylesford, and you can review those at your leisure. So thanks everybody, and bye for now.